critical focus channel.
So, finally we have some more information of the core warbands inside the Spitewood expansion up for pre-order this weekend. I am personally more hyped up over the Blood of the Bull, but could I pass up on this opportunity to rein in on this quadruped warband? Nay. Okay, enough with the puns. Time to quit stalling. Kurnoth's Heralds gallops into the Underworlds from the treacherous forests of Spitewood. And we now have the full breakdown of the fighter cards as well as a good chunk of the Warscroll. Let's check it out. First up, the leader Illorin. He is a 4-move, 1 shield, 5 health, 3 bounty fighter, and those stats don't differ on his golden side, by the way. The attack profile reads 2 range, 2 hammers, 2 damage with crit grievous. That's quite a juicy uninspired attack from range 2. There is also an optional attack, which I suppose is the option to run over your foe with the legs, you know, if it behooves you. And that attack reads 1 range, 4 swords, 1 damage with grapple. All of the fighters share this latter attack, and it reads the same both uninspired and inspired. If you can get flanked or surrounded off, those 4 swords look pretty tasty if you only need the 1 damage or really have use for the grapple for some reason. Inspired, the range 2 profile picks up another hammer and goes to plain grievous, not too shabby at all. The single shield is probably the only weak part of this profile, but it is made up for with the 5 health to some extent, as well as in part also from a Warscroll ability, which I will touch upon very soon. Cullen is the axeman, and I suppose Cullen is wordplay with cull, meaning to reduce the population of, say, wild animals by selective slaughter, which tracks with the menacing axe pose. Anyhow, he is also 4-move, but on a single dodge, with the same 5 health profile, and now with 2 bounty, which stays the same inspired. Apart from the hooves attack they all share, he also hits you into the next realm possibly, especially inspired. He, though, only hits from range 1 with 2 hammers, 2 damage uninspired, but gets a huge buff inspired with picking up an extra hammer and an extra damage. And cleave, which means you can slap grievous on top of that and forego the cleave for 4 very reliable damage. His big downside is obviously his appalling defense. A single dodge could easily see those 5 health dwindle very fast, and he might be a prime target to get rid of early with how dangerous he can become. So investing in some defense buffing upgrades wouldn't go amiss. Bringing up the rear is the bikini-clad Lenwith, who shares the non-attack stats with Cullen to a T, as well as the 2 bounty profile, although she is far less of a threat. Apart from the hooves attack they all share, she has a decent enough range attack for 3 range, 2 hammers, 1 damage with a crit stagger. Crit stagger is certainly rather bland and amongst the weaker weapon effects you can get, especially on 2 dice to trigger the crit. Inspired, she picks up not pace, but at least an extra hammer and goes to straight stagger, which is still not very impressive. If you can find a better weapon for the decent template she provides, you should probably do so. So let's look at some abilities as well as the Inspire condition. They are all about protecting their own territory, their sort of glen of the forest, I guess, and apparently they are supposed to pair well with the strike deck included in this expansion, called Hunting Grounds. The Inspire first up triggers after an action step if a friendly fighter began that action step in friendly territory and then made a successful attack. Interesting that it says an action step and not your action step specifically. So if you find a way to make a reactionary attack inside the confines of your opponent's action step, that'll also do. In either case, it's a rather solid Inspire condition. They all have quite accurate attacks, as elite warbands tends to have, and should turn golden at a decent enough pace. Inspiring Cullen, followed by your leader, and lastly possibly the archer, is, I guess, a decent way to go about it. So it doesn't really matter where you end up at the end of that action step as long as you started it in your territory, which makes it all the more versatile. Sort of almost exact mirror of how the Ember Watch inspires, although they only need to do a core ability and does not require a successful attack. And the Swift Sentinel's ability, which is a sort of passive, also gifts these fighters with the flying keyword while in friendly territory, as well as immunity to being flanked, albeit not immunity to being surrounded. So sort of a moot point versus Moloch, I am afraid to say. Still not too shabby, especially given their lackluster defense. Still, I think the single defense die will probably still let you down more often than not. We are also treated to 3 different, I guess, once per game abilities, with precision volley for Lenwith being able to let loose a second attack on a different target. We don't get the full lowdown on how exactly this ability works though, so I can't give you the exact wording on that one yet. We are also told that the leader Yllarin can supercharge his attacks once per game, gaining cleave or ensnare on a weapon of his choice. I am not too excited about that one, honestly. He already gets Grievous inspired and you can't combine weapon effects. Sure, there are moments when one is more useful than the other, but still not very exciting, honestly, and we've seen these types of once per game abilities on a lot of Warscrolls already. Too many, I would argue. Lastly, we have the Endless Hunt, which is a 2-hex push after a friendly fighter has attacked. Can't go wrong with a push, and for a small warband especially, they can be all the more crucial. That's pretty much it. Mildly excited to see them in play, although I'll probably hand these guys over to Dennis, not least for the painting part, and I am sure none of you will feel sad about that fact, and I can't wait to see what he will do with them. Stay tuned for another rundown tomorrow, hopefully with the Blood of the Bull. Like if you like the video, and have a great rest of your day. Take care. Bye. Lastly, a big shout out to all my members that help support my content and makes it so much easier for me to produce multiple videos on a weekly basis. Members do get access to the member Discord, get to influence the content, get early access to a ton of videos, as well as get featured in the monthly painting showcase if they want. Member or not, I dearly appreciate the like, the comment and the subscription.